Hi, I'm Tiffany Oshinsky, and this is Serving Pancakes with League One Volleyball. With the inaugural Love season just around the corner, over the next few weeks, we'll be following some of the biggest women's college volleyball games featuring schools that our players attended. In today's episode, I'll be going over the thrilling 5-set victory for number 2 Nebraska over number 10 Purdue with Big Ten Network's Emily Ehman, and then Love Omaha's head coach Suzie Fritz will join me to talk about the inaugural season, her career, and so much more. So first, let's talk Nebraska-Purdue. Emily Ehman, welcome back to Serving Pancakes. So happy you're here.
So happy to be here. Always down to chat some NCAA volleyball. It's been a crazy season so far.
Absolutely insane. And this match was equally insane with Nebraska, who was number 2 at the time, coming back from being down 2-1 to beat Purdue 25-22, 22-25, 23-25, 25-22, and then the insane 5th set, 17-15. So let's talk big picture first, Emily. What stood out to you the most in this match?
To be honest, the biggest thing to me was watching this match. It didn't feel like Nebraska won. It felt like Purdue lost it. You know, they were up 2-1 in one of the toughest places to play in the entire country at the Devaney Center. They're up 10-8 in set 5 and then kind of let it slip away. The biggest thing to me was Purdue service errors. You know, they had 4 in that 5th set alone, 4 in a period of the first 7 points. So they were just handing Nebraska, part of that 5th set. And when you look at the numbers, Purdue pretty much outplayed them. I mean, in terms of blocks, 15-5.5, they outblocked Nebraska. They outhit them 311-242. And that's a really good Nebraska defense. And if you're going to be able to hit above 300 against them, to me, you have to be able to capitalize on that. Eva Hudson and Chloe Chacoin, Purdue's outsides, are just absolutely insane. One of the best duos in the country, combining for nearly 50 kills. The difference, though, again, those service errors for Purdue, they had 19 of them in the entire match. If you have the opportunity to take down the number 2 team in the country and you're kind of outplaying them in almost every capacity in the 5th set, you're up 10-8, you have to find a way to close it. So it's kind of, for the Boilers letting it slip away. But I mean, what a fun volleyball match. The defense was outstanding. It's so fun when you see players like Hudson and Chacoin go off, and then you're playing in one of the best atmospheres in college volleyball. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that in a 17-15 5th set.
There's so many things I want to touch on that you just mentioned. I want to break things down. First, let's start with the most recent thing that you just said, playing at the Devaney Center. You've been there. You've seen it happen. You can feel the electricity coming from your screen while watching games in Nebraska. But can you just explain what it is like to actually be there, especially when you have such a wild match like this was?
Yeah, the Devaney Center is second to none. To me, it's the most intimidating place to play in all of college volleyball. I mean, the bells and whistles there are incredible. It's an incredibly nice facility. It seats about 8,500 or 9,000 with standing room only, and they sell out every single night. They're closing in on 350 consecutive sellouts, which is a Division I athletics women's record, not just for volleyball, but all of women's athletics. It is crazy. Those fans know volleyball so well. They're so knowledgeable about the game. They know when to cheer, and then if the other team's doing well, it gets real quiet in there. But it's crazy. I mean, when you have 9,000 fans screaming at you in that kind of environment, it is so tough to play in. And that really becomes a difference maker when you enter a 5th set, when things are close, when you can get that crowd momentum behind you. That's one of the reasons why it's one of the best home court advantages in all of sports.
I mean, they've won 35 straight there. So, watching this game and hearing this crowd, I can completely understand how much of a home field advantage this is. Now, one of the heroes for Nebraska, Merritt Beeson, she had a season high 22 kills in this game. We've seen how good she is. We know how good she is, but can you explain why teams struggle to stop her?
Merritt Beeson's a gamer. I mean, she is one of the most difficult attackers to stop in the country. She's very rangy, meaning she can, vary up her attack well. She hits deep corners. She can barrel things down the line. Whatever set is given to her, she does a really nice job of adjusting to that. She also has really great court vision. So it doesn't matter the defense and the block you put in front of her. She's able to see the block really well. If there's a small seam, she'll hit right through it. Does a nice job at targeting fingertips. She's also just got a heavy arm. I mean, if you give her a seam to rip through, she's putting a hole in the floor. She is just absolutely incredible. One thing that I think Nebraska hasn't necessarily utilized enough, but they started to during that match against Purdue is getting her going in the backcourt. They've been rotating her out with a DS in the back row, which last year she was so effective back there. She was one of the best backcourt attackers in the country. And now this year they've been using a DS because they have a plethora of just incredible littles on that team. But Beeson really got it going in the back row, especially when it mattered most, when those sets were really tight, especially in that fifth set, they left her back there. And I mean, she was just going off, but I mean, she's a gamer. She's rangy. She's athletic. She can just fly, jump out of the gym. She's so much fun to watch.
And talk about Andy Jackson, because she's also been absolutely unstoppable.
I mean, she's like nearly unstoppable. There's one point in that match, I want to say it was a third set, she was hitting like 900. I mean, Andy Jackson right now is in a league of her own in terms of middles. Her slide attack is the best that I've seen in the country. I mean, the way that she's able to fly up there, and even if it's not the perfect set, manages to find something to do with. But she added 3 inches to her vertical in the offseason. She now touches 10-10, which is crazy for an attacker that's only 6'3". She can jump out of the gym. She's really rangy. She's very explosive, strong arm, and her connection with her setter, Bergen Riley, is incredible. You know, they had time to practice it over the summer playing in the USA gym. Obviously, a lot of, time just in the Nebraska gym as well. But Andy Jackson's incredible. Her offense has taken just massive strides in the last year, and her blocking too has gotten a lot better.
You mentioned Eva Hudson and Chloe Chicoine on Purdue. They both had double-doubles in that match. They also looked unstoppable. I mean, if I didn't know the score, I would have thought that Purdue had it just based on how they were hitting. Even though they lost this match, how dangerous is this Purdue team with them?
They're so dangerous. I mean, the key to stopping Purdue is to slow down Eva Hudson and Chloe Chicoine, which teams can't do. It's so incredible because you look at Chloe Chicoine, she's an attacker that's about 5'9", and I would say that's like a generous 5'9". She's more like a 5'8", but she jumps through the gym. It doesn't matter that that the ball is going to either of them in the outside or the backcourt. You still can't find a way to stop them, which is what makes this Purdue team so fun is where the ball is going. They set a vast majority of their sets to the outside, to one of the two, and they just find ways to put it down. In a fifth set, in the beginning of the first set, it doesn't matter. They're going to get a ton of swings. They're just ballers. And, I always think about who would I not ever want to play against? And those are two players that I just would never want to face on the other side because they're getting the ball. They're still going to put it down. They also just have that look in their eye that they're going to take their game to the next level. And as an opponent, I would be completely terrified.
I mean, Chicoine being 5'8", 5'9", whatever it is. I think it says she's 5'10" on the roster, but I also know as someone who's 5'3", who was once put in a book as 5'6", I know people like to be a little generous. Yep. But I mean, she's going up against Merritt Beeson, who's 6'3", I believe, and Andy Jackson 6'4". The fact that she can get those hits down and have that many kills in a match against girls who are that tall is insane.
It's crazy. And to be honest, for both of those players too, it's not only just their front court play, but it's like having two liberos in the backcourt as well. They are so good defensively. They fly around the backcourt. I mean, Chicoine was making saves in that fifth set that, could have got Purdue the win, obviously didn't. But I mean, she is incredible in the backcourt as well. Both of them are.
For sure. And then their middle hitter, Raven Colvin, she didn't have the best night hitting, but she did lead with 11 blocks. So again, same question when it comes to Raven. How dangerous is she on this team?
Raven Colvin's incredible. I mean, she's a very undersized middle. She's just about 6 feet tall, maybe 5'11", but she plays so much bigger than she is. Because she's a little bit shorter, she really has to make sure to be very disciplined. That's what she's really good at blocking wise. She makes really explosive movements. She doesn't move until she knows where the ball is going. And that's led to just stuff after stuff. I mean, right now she's second in the NCAA in blocks per set at about 1.7, which is just absolutely unheard of. Again, second in the country. That's first in the Big Ten. She is incredible. And also, when they can get her going offensively, it really changes the game for Purdue. She's good enough to where the ball doesn't have to be perfect. Purdue oftentimes talks about just getting it in a window for her to hit because she's so athletic and dynamic that if you can just get the ball to her, she'll figure out something to do with.
For sure. There is one play I remember she went up to slam it with her right hand, and in the last second she just tips it with her left. And
crazy. I mean, it's not even just the athleticism. You see her make those plays a lot. Her IQ is so high. She knows if the set isn't perfect, she has those last split second adjustments to know exactly what to do with it, whether it's an off speed or a tip.
For sure. Now, Purdue was dominant in the second and third set, beating Nebraska in those two. But what happened in the final two, especially in that fifth set where they were up 15-14, 1 point away to seal the game? What went wrong with the Boilers?
To be honest, Nebraska started making plays, and it took them, up until that point to really do it. They were kept in that set because of Purdue service errors. Up until about the 7-point mark, Purdue had handed Nebraska 4 service errors. So they were already kind of in the set. And then all of a sudden at 10-8, they found a way to turn it on. Their front row really started making plays. And it was a really balanced effort. It's not like one person really ended up just going off at the end to get it done. Merritt Beeson had those last 2 kills for Nebraska. But up until that point, they just found ways with other people, whether that was Andy Jackson getting a kill, twice late in that set. Harper Murray showed up big. The biggest thing for Nebraska is when it's tight, they turn it on. And sometimes they struggle with that starting off matches a little bit slow. But again, also if you're playing in a fifth set at the Devaney Center and it's that close and you've got the crowd's momentum behind you, that definitely helps your team turn it on a little bit.
For sure. All right. Well, time for the Serving Pancakes pancake counter. And in this match, I only counted 1 pancake. It was in the 4th set by Lainey Choboy. Nebraska was up 9-5 when Choboy came out of nowhere to just get that pancake and dig the ball up. Unfortunately, Nebraska did not get the point on that effort, but it was a valiant effort by her, and I want to commend her on that. But talking about defense in general, I know we talked about Hudson and Chicoine, but what did you see in the defense from both teams? What really stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, Nebraska's defense always stands out. You mentioned a player like Lainey Choboy, just absolutely incredible. I think they did a really nice job in the backcourt, which they always do, just racking up dig after dig. Lexi Rodriguez, to me, she's hands down the best libero in the country. I thought Purdue was doing a good job keeping the ball on Bergen Riley in the backcourt. Her dig numbers were really high, trying to get Nebraska out of system. But really what stood out the most was the blocking from Purdue. I mean, they did an incredible job really from start to finish. And that's what this Purdue team is known for. They just put up block after block. They ended with 15 of them against Nebraska's about 5.5. So that really stood out. Raven Colvin, again, just a phenomenal blocker. She really led that charge for Purdue and was just absolutely a lead up front. She racked up 9 stuff. So, it's a backcourt defense for Nebraska, the front court defense for Purdue that really stuck out.
Lastly, Emily, there has been so much parity in women's college volleyball this season. So many upsets. In your opinion, why is that? And what does it mean for the rest of the regular season going into the tournament?
Well, parity means that it's going to be really fun as we head into the rest of the season. But it's been really cool to see because over the last 3 or 4 years, we're seeing upsets like we've never seen before and so much more parity top to bottom. A lot of conferences, take the ACC, for example, used to be a very top heavy conference. You had Pitt, you had Louisville, and then Georgia Tech, is always kind of in the mix. But now there's so many conferences and teams where it's anyone's game. You can't take a night off because top to bottom, these conferences are getting so much stronger. And not only are the top teams getting better, but the middle teams are now pushing the top teams. And the teams that are normally at the bottom of conferences are pushing those middle teams, taking sets off the top teams. Across the board right now, you can't take a night off because we've seen upset after upset time and time again, which for us as fans, I mean, it makes it so exciting. It's, every night we're seeing massive upsets, which is going to, pay dividends for a lot of teams down the line in the tournament too. And probably some pretty big upsets once postseason play starts.
Very excited to see that. That tournament is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Emily. Appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and talk some women's college volleyball.
Yeah, I love it. Happy to be back anytime. Thanks for having me.
Great analysis by the extremely knowledgeable Emily Ehman. Now let's talk about professional women's volleyball in Nebraska. Love Omaha head coach Suzie Fritz is here. Coach Fritz has the resume and experience you want in a head coach. Born and raised in Kansas, Coach Fritz began her coaching career in 1994 at Florida Atlantic. She eventually found her way back home, becoming the assistant coach of Kansas State in 1997, then took over the program in 2001. After 25 seasons with the Wildcats, she became an assistant coach at Arkansas. During her tenure, she led nationally ranked teams to 18 NCAA tournament appearances with her players, including 16 All-American selections, 26 all region selections, and 56 all Big 12 selections. And now League One Volleyball is lucky to have her lead LOVB Omaha. Coach Fritz, welcome to Serving
Hi.
Pancakes. Thanks so
Thank
much
you
for
so
being here.
much. I'm so excited to be here, Tiffany. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much, Coach. I have to start by asking, after such a storied career in college ball, why did you decide to go to the pros, specifically with League One Volleyball?
So many things. The one, just the people involved in League One were, I think, as I kind of started to get more into it and meeting, my first initial meeting actually was with Danielle Scott, who, 5-time Olympian, phenomenal human being, and just her excitement for how League One was building, and Tom Hogan and his team. They're just phenomenal people, and I think that's where it started. I knew volleyball. Volleyball's in my heart. It's what I love. Coaching is the family business, right? But the college landscape is changing, and I think this was the next logical step for me that made a lot of sense to do what I love, but have it look a little different, if I'm being honest.
So, what are you expecting to be the biggest difference between college and pro?
Yeah, I think there, the what I notice right away in conversations with the women on the team is just this desire for collaborative work, right? These guys are professionals. They've played all over the world. They have far more international playing experience than I have. I have a lot of volleyball experience, but I think the collaborative piece of it is, and you take away the academic piece, which is a big part of the student athlete experience, right? So I think the collaborative, just where these guys know what they want, they know what they need, they communicate it openly and honestly, and I love just the direct model, and the really clear vision of where they want to go. And so I think those are the big pieces right now.
This is the inaugural season of League One. So, what have been some of the challenges you faced planning for a first time team in a first time league?
Yeah, I heard someone say, right, you're building the plane as you fly it, right? I mean, there's a little bit of that where, because I do feel, to be honest, really comfortable with just uh, all the pieces and the parts. I think when I became a head coach, I tell people often that it took me probably 5 to 7 years to get my arms wrapped around all of the entities that are involved in an athletic program, whether it be collegiate, internationally, and you start thinking about the marketing and promotions and the ticketing and the events and the strength and conditioning, athletic training, right? And the list goes on and on and on. And really, I think as a head coach, you want to have at least some minimal knowledge of these things. So everybody's doing that for the first time in all of these different areas, and the communication and the collaboration that's required to do that is what I notice right off the bat, right? Is that we're all, but the intention within the organization is phenomenal, and everybody's in it together trying to problem solve quickly as things arise. And that part of it, I think, is pretty huge for the organization period to be successful.
Well, we're only a few weeks out from preseason starting. So, what are you doing to prep for this first preseason?
Yeah, I'm planning practice. I mean, I'm trying to stay focused on the volleyball things. There's a lot of things to be focused upon, but I'm trying to really just stay focused on the volleyball things, and what the structure of practice is going to look like, starting to set a schedule for the women on the team, and working with League One in terms of what their requirements of the athletes are going to be. And I'm sure you're familiar with it, but there's a tremendous amount of just resources and opportunity that these women have access through League One. And some of the programming that they have done, just from the pro level all the way down to the club level, is phenomenal. And so just getting organized, I think, more than anything, is the simple answer.
Do you sort of have like a mentality of what you want to build in this first year?
Yeah, I do. I want to be really competitive, and I want there's a desire in me in some ways, right, to represent women in sports, and a desire to, I know a lot of the women on my team are so excited to represent something where young players can look to and say, hey, I can do that someday. And I think there's still a little bit of that in me, that if you want to be a volleyball coach and you want to coach at the highest level and you want to stay in the United States to do it, that opportunity is there for you. And there's not a lot of women professional coaches, and that representation for me really matters. And I'm excited to be able to have a chance to be a great coach and do it in a great league with a tremendous group of women.
I love that. Well, especially Nebraska is one of, if not the hotspot for women's volleyball. I mean, watching the Nebraska Purdue game on Friday, there were so many cutaways of the younger generation holding signs saying stuff like future Nebraska volleyball player. They're just so excited about the sport and they want to be part of it. So now you've coached at Kansas State for a long time in your career, but you also had the opportunity to play in Nebraska. So what are you expecting when you get to come coach in Omaha?
Yeah, I tell people a lot, like I've been like just in arm's reach watching it for a really long time. And I think until you're in it, you don't really totally get it, just the fandom that exists in the state of Nebraska. And it's, I mean, Creighton University, Kirsten Bernthal is a phenomenal coach, and she's got her team playing exceptionally well. And Matt Buttermore at UNO, and this is outside of the Huskers, right, who have traditionally been a powerhouse, and John does a phenomenal job there. And so the university just filtering system, if you will, and they're all successful all the way down to the club level. The high schools in Omaha play tremendous volleyball. Just fandom is the best word that I can explain it. They're true volleyball fans. They love volleyball there, and I just feel blessed to be, part of it, and embed ourselves in that community. It's phenomenal.
Well, speaking of some of the players on your team, you get to coach 4-time Olympic medalist Jordan Larson and 2-time Olympic medalist Justine Wong-Orantes. So let's start with Jordan, who is known as the governor of Nebraska. What are you excited about when it comes to coaching Jordan?
Yeah, it's been a really neat experience to get to know Jordan on a level outside of maybe her as a volleyball player, and just the journey that she has been on from a career perspective, and admire that, and use that in some ways to um, advance, if you will, right, the experience of our team and myself and our program. And she is an amazing human being with this desire to give back to the Nebraska community that helped build her and put her in a position to have this phenomenal volleyball career. And she's committed to service and mentorship and legacy, if you will. And I just feel blessed to be in that with her, and I think that's the cool part, right? She's going to let me be in that with her, and wants to still be coached, and wants to get better as a player, and wants me to coach the heck out of her. So it's a really cool, I think, dynamic so far. I have so much admiration for her, and where she's been, and the fact that she's still doing it. So I can't say enough good things about it,
Yeah.
and the opportunity to do that with her.
Yeah. And with her experience, I mean, how do you coach somebody with that much experience?
Well, Jordan knows exactly what she wants and what she needs for the most part, right? I think a lot of times with an elite level player like that, it's not necessarily about doing more with her. In some ways, it's about helping her refine, if you will. You're not asking her to do more. You're asking her to do really specific things really, really well, and helping her create that list. What is she thinking about? What is she working on? on how can we help her do that. And I don't think that list is very long for her anymore. For a lot of the women on the team, right, is just what's your list right now? Where do you want us to help you? And that's where I think that collaborative piece really comes into play with these guys is at this point, they kind of know who they are and what they want.
For sure. And then Justine Wong-Orantes, best libero at the Olympics in Tokyo. She's the all-time digs leader in Nebraska, another queen of the state, if you will, when it comes to volleyball. Do you think that you have a huge edge right there with your libero situation
Boy,
in the
it sure
league?
feels like it, right? It sure feels like it, but they're all good, and just a shout out to, Maggie Upright and Danielle, and Michelle Chapman, right? Smith. Those were the recruiters that went out and got these phenomenal athletes on all the teams, Omaha included. And I just think they've done such a phenomenal job of getting the right talent to be able to make this thing go. And yeah, I do. I think I have a little edge, right? She's the best. Who doesn't want the best?
For sure. Now, I mean, we're going to be seeing elite volleyball, elite players, and not just, in Omaha, but all over the league, as you were saying, talking about the recruiting and trying to get these women to join the league. There's just so many amazing players. So, specifically talking about Omaha, who on your team are you most excited to coach and
Oh
to
gosh.
introduce to the States?
Yeah. I that would be impossible for me to answer, that would be impossible for me to answer. There are the just the diversity within the roster. I'm excited about the international players and their opportunity to experience the sport culture in the US. When you talk to them, that's something that they're uh, just really amazed by, and looking forward to being part of that. So I think there's a piece of that for sure. But even more than that, just the community aspect of League One and the ability to have it be more than just volleyball. Those are all things I'm really excited about. I don't know as if I can, if you ask me to pull out one player, right? I just don't think that's possible. I'm excited to get to know all of them and be part of this process for all of them, and hopefully help them advance their careers and have a tremendous experience.
Well, there are 10 women who were on the U.S. Olympic team this past summer who are spread out among the 6 League One teams. There are international Olympians in the league as well as other top players from all over. So, with all of these players out there, which teams do you think will be the hardest to compete against? And who are you most excited to face?
Yeah, all of them. I don't know. That's the cool thing about it, right? Is I don't know, and all of them. The answer is all of them. And right now, if I'm being frank, I'm not really thinking too much about anybody else. Right? Is all of our time and effort. I've got this tremendous staff that we put together in Omaha. Remy is from France, and he's got a ton of international experience, and we were able to bring in Corey Tetzloff, who was an All-American at Creighton, and she's part of our staff. And Joby Ramos was currently at Iowa Western Community College. And I've got this beautiful, amazing staff. And I just, right now, we're going to build our own plane, and we'll worry about everybody else's when we get there.
Now, looking back at your career, both as a player and a coach, what things have you learned that you're bringing to Love Omaha?
Yeah, the list would be too long. I often say I've screwed it up so many times, right? I think where I'm at from a career perspective right now is that early on, I think I overcoached everybody, that anything that was coming into it was, you're trying to fix everything at once. And I think what I've learned is it's just better to do less well. And so maybe both from a coaching perspective and a life perspective, I'm on this mission to do less better. And I think just really being intentional about what you want to accomplish that day, what you want to accomplish that practice, what are the most important things, and how do you create an environment that allows everyone to be successful within that. And I think for me, that's priority one. I'm philosophically, I know who I am from a coaching perspective. I know what I want to do and what I don't. And it's a really wonderful place to be. And to feel like you've done a lot of trial and error and you've made a lot of mistakes and you're in a place where you feel like, yeah, no, this is the way we want to do it. And so I think that's where I'm at right now.
Would you say you learned most of this from coaching, like in your career? Because you said earlier that your family is, you're from a family of coaches. Did you learn
Yeah.
any of this from them too? Or did you learn anything specifically from them that you've brought to your coaching?
Yeah, a lot, our family, it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because you're always talking a lot of the stuff I feel like I learned from my family was the relationship culture building pieces, right? They're football coaches and basketball coaches and track and field coaches, right? So from a sport perspective, I think that's just stuff I learned along the way. I had some tremendous mentors and people that were really, really influential in my life in shaping how I wanted to teach and how I wanted to learn about volleyball just from a philosophical perspective. What are the most important things? How do you go about teaching and training them? How do you develop your own principles within that? And yet not lose who you are as a coach. I have to be me, and I don't. But you're always just grabbing pieces and parts from different places along the way, and I think I'm to a really nice place where I want to keep learning, but I want it to be within a certain framework now.
So going back to the beginning of your coaching career, you kind of had this unique way of becoming a coach, because I read that you actually started coaching while you were still playing. So can you tell
Yeah,
me?
we went 6-21 that year. It was just really terrible. Yeah.
So, well, how did you go from becoming a player to a coach? Can talk about that transition, what it was like, especially since you were playing. You were like a player manager in baseball in that regard. But talk
Yeah.
about that, and also just how you got into the sport in general, because I also read that you considered yourself a late bloomer to the sport.
Yeah, yeah. It was different then. The club systems, particularly in rural America, were not established in 1980s. I'm dating myself a little bit. But so I think if I really think back that far, right, it just was different. And so I went the junior college route initially as a player, and then I ended up at Florida Atlantic University, and I played for this Venezuelan guy. His name was Leo Uzgatiki. And if you say who's got the key really fast, that's how you say his name. And he was just the coolest. I played for Ray Bouchard, who's the volleyball coach at the University of Kansas, and then I worked for him for a couple of years, and I worked for Jim McLaughlin for a few years at Kansas State as an assistant, and with my dear friend Jason Watson, who is an amazing, just brilliant coach at the University of Arkansas, and along the way was introduced to Marv Dunphy and Carl McGowan, and a lot of these guys just really shaped how I feel about volleyball. And I think back to that time of, yeah, sure, I want to be a volleyball coach. And unfortunately, they had fired Leo Uskatiki and had hired the assistant women's basketball coach. This actually happened back then, to coach the volleyball team. And the problem was she just didn't know anything about volleyball. So I came on basically to run practice, but with my teammates. They were the players that I had played with the year before. And it was complex, and we weren't very good, and I was terrible. And, it was a really difficult start, if you will. But I left there thinking, okay, why would anybody do this? This is terrible. And I got really lucky that I landed a couple of jobs after that, and it's turned into be this beautiful, imperfect journey, career journey that I wouldn't give up for the world.
Did you know that when you were a player coach that coaching was the next step, or did it sort of take you a few practices, a little bit of time before you realized, like,
I
this
think
is my
it took
path?
me a lot. Yeah, I think it took me a long time, to be honest. I think it I think you know that you have a disposition for teaching and mentorship and development. I think you know you have this disposition. I learned pretty quick that if it wasn't volleyball, I'd be teaching something. I think I see myself as a teacher, and but it took a while to gain both the knowledge and the experience to feel comfortable in the role. It's not something learn overnight.
For sure. Now, going back to 2003, I read that you were named the Big 12 Coach of the Year after you led Kansas State to their first ever conference title. You were on your way to coaching the Wildcats in the NCAA tournament, and you were 1 month away from giving birth. So, being that it was 2003, what was it like being so far along in your pregnancy, having a young child, and coaching at such a high level? What type of support did you get?
Yeah, I remember that it's chaos, I mean, I think it's just this chaos that you're living in. And I remember just constantly thinking, finding joy in the chaos, right? Find joy in the chaos. So, what was it like being pregnant? It was just being pregnant. I don't know as if it was anything other than that, right? At that time, that was my second pregnancy, so I knew a little bit more what to expect. The first one was probably a little tougher
Mhm.
because you don't know what's coming. But the second one, you kind of know what to expect. I do remember seeing my physician and going, "Hey, can I get on this plane and fly to, wherever? Do you have to come with me? What's going to
Right.
happen here?" And so organizing that, but my doctors were great. My team was great. I don't, um, if I'm being honest, I was just coaching and happened to be pregnant,
Mhm.
and now after you have the babies, right, and then they're alive, then you have to try to keep them alive, and that's a whole different set of things, right? So one of my funniest stories is having probably my 4-year old with us in the back of the van, and the team was always so great with them, and having them in the back of the van and having him get sick and like really getting sick, virtually got sick in the van, and having my team just be a bunch of champs and thinking, "Oh my gosh, God love them." But those teams along the way, when my kids are little, they helped me raise my kids. They ran around in the gym, and the athletic trainers helped me, and the
Oh,
assistant coaches helped me, and the ops people helped me, and my parents helped me, and it was a team effort to try to get those boys right, to maybe to school, if you will, right? So I had a lot of hands and a lot of help.
I love that. I mean, it's now 20 years later, and I feel like there's, still a stigma attached to working moms or athletes being moms. But, speaking specifically about Love, Sarah Wilhite Parsons of Love Madison is pregnant with her first child. Off the top of my head, there are a lot of moms in the league like Carly Lloyd and Julianne Fawcett. And in general, you're seeing a lot of professional women athletes in like the WNBA or NWSL who are becoming moms and working moms. So, over the course of your coaching career, how have you seen working moms supported in athletics? How has it evolved?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have, one, they're athletes. They're athletes first. I mean, well, maybe they're moms first, right? But they're athletes, and I guess my thought is they absolutely can do it, right? Now they have some physical demands that pregnancy complicates, that you have to be pretty committed to coming back after a pregnancy, because you got to get back in shape. You got to, meet the physical demands of your sport. But the ones that do it, it's absolutely possible. It's no different than putting on a suit and going to work. And this is just what they choose to do. So I have, that's how I feel about it. There's no reason why these women can't go have a family and do this too. You know, we have to, well, we don't have to, but many of them choose to carry them, right? And so that complicates it. It's going to take you out, like Sarah, right? She's going to take a year off, and then she's going to get back in shape, and she's going to come back. And being a parent makes you a better person, and so she's going to come back and learn some things along the way and try to figure out how to balance being a working mom, and she'll do it just like thousands of women to come before her.
For sure. Yeah, I feel like that's the one thing that people tend to forget sometimes. It's like, oh, she's an athlete, how can she come back after having a kid? And it's like everyone who has a kid has pretty much done that. I mean, there are people who decide to not go back to work, which is very fine and acceptable. But then there's the women who want to go back to work, and they should be allowed and supported and everything. So
And there's some really cool, Tiffany, and I don't know if this has been talked about, right, with you before, but there's some amazing just fertility things that are groundbreaking within the League One organization. When you talk about supporting women in sports, and for women that want to have families, League One has done everything to try to put them in a position to accomplish all of their goals, not just volleyball, but starting their families, wanting children, supporting them in their fertility journeys, whatever that might be. It's really amazing stuff. I'd encourage you to talk to somebody more knowledgeable about it than me.
Definitely, I'll look into that for sure. Now, speaking of kids, I saw that your son was a caddy at Whistling Straits.
Yes, last summer.
Are you guys big golfers?
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm a good golfer, but I like to play golf, right? He's a big golfer. My husband's a big golfer. And so it was an amazing experience for him last summer. He loved it. He absolutely loved it.
That's amazing. Jordan Larson picked up golf during the pandemic, and I feel like maybe, you guys should start some sort of, team bonding experience, getting out on the links.
Yeah, it takes a minute, right, to get good at golf. I don't know if the beginning golfers would think the same, but I go hack it around when I can.
Oh, I love it. I love golf. I'm not very good at it either, but it's a lot of fun to play.
Yeah. I think I may need to get to retirement because it takes some time to get good at it.
True. Well, lastly, going back to volleyball, what do you hope to showcase in this inaugural season, and what do you want fans and the public to see, learn, and know?
Yeah, I hope that we can showcase just a phenomenal level of play. Simply, I hope that we can put all of our pieces together and in a short period of time and really showcase this beautiful combination of international athletes and American athletes and varied levels of experiences, and put all of our pieces together and just simply play phenomenal volleyball, right? If you ask me what I really want to accomplish, that's it, right? And I want the fans and the people to see how amazing these women are. Just their oh my gosh, they are so much more than volleyball players. They're amazing volleyball players, but they're also these incredibly driven, smart, talented humans that I think are tremendous role models just for people, not just little girls, but just for people in terms of how they're driven to be successful, how they hone their craft, how hard they work to be good at it, and how well they fail and recover and go again. And so I guess that's what I want people to know and see. But mostly I just want to put all the pieces together and be really good at volleyball.
I love it. Well, Coach Fritz, thank you so much for coming on Serving Pancakes. It
Thank
was a pleasure speaking with you.
It's so nice to meet you, Tiffany. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Serving Pancakes. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. You can also listen to the podcast version on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.